It may be useful at this juncture, and I suspect necessary, to make a firm distinction in terminology between the two types of belief being discussed here, for what has hitherto been described as a functional belief may be more accurately described as a life tool, or a pragmatic probability, given that the word belief generally implies, even if only tacitly, some relationship to truth, and the life tools by which we function in a practical daily sense make no pretense to truth, or at least they shouldn't. Functional beliefs, or life tools, are by their nature open to revision, change, improvement, precisely because they are based on the principle of heuristics. They are flexible, not because this is necessarily a virtue in itself, but because they are founded in experience which develops and changes with time, and thus flexibility is an intrinsic and unavoidable part of their nature. Metaphysical beliefs, on the other hand, invariably correspond to some kind of unsubstantiated or unsubstantiable deduction or base assertion made about the ultimate nature of reality, and are therefore not only beyond the vagaries of experience and change, but also, it would seem, beyond the common facilities of proof, whether empirical or logical. Hence, taking them as true is seen to be, nowadays, an acceptable and socially benign quirk of the mind. But what of this mental quirk, this predilection for believing things in an absence of evidence? Is it rational, or genuinely socially benign? Let's consider that question for a moment. It's been claimed by certain members of the theological community that it's arrogant to dismiss something simply because it cannot be proven rationally. This term, proven rationally, is itself a concept warranting considerable mirth on our part. How anything can be proven irrationally is surely one of the great mysteries. Still, this obviously scandalous misuse of language should not cause us to pass over the point, because it's of considerable importance. If it is indeed arrogant to dismiss something on the basis that it cannot be proven rationally, then it surely behooves us all to believe everything that has ever been believed. Does this not follow? I believe it does. We should then, based on this criterion, believe in God and gods of all persuasions, angels, elves, cherubs, demons, heaven, hell, purgatory, limbo, zombies, all manner of witchcraft, unicorns. Need I continue? Indeed, based on this kind of logic, we should, to be consistent, believe in, or at the very least the possibility of, everything that has ever been asserted to exist, and further, anything that will be asserted to exist. It would surely take a voice of far less eloquence than mine to articulate the utter hopelessness of this. And yet, if theologians themselves are to be consistent, and avoid the arrogance they claim of rationalists, they must themselves believe in all these things. But I'm bound to ask, how many of them do? Are we to presume, then, that the theological community, or at least part thereof, admits to no form of superstition whatsoever? All that is required of a concept to place it beyond what theologians would accept as rational proof is any kind of supernatural predicate. And what superstition has ever been proffered without just such a predicate? We may not, it seems, without risking the dire consequences of an all-embracing arrogance, dismiss the possibility that epileptics are indeed possessed by demons. As disturbing as it may seem, modern theologians who hold to the notion that we must not dismiss something because it cannot be rationally proven are bound, by virtue of simple logical consequence, to accept the possibility of a demon-led assault on epileptics. It's at all times imperative to make the most unambiguous distinction between accepting the theoretical possibility of the existence of something and the unsupported belief in its actuality. For it should be clear that anything capable of being created within the alchemy of the imagination can subsequently be asserted to exist. But it's absurd to consider assertion alone, in any sense and to any degree, to be a criterion for belief. It would seem, as a general rule, that the criterion of rational proof, or even evidence or argument, is not one which is ordinarily applied to metaphysical beliefs. So, what psychological tools are operating here? Reason is clearly not one of them, nor does any kind of heuristic tool seem to be the basis of any fundamental tenet of the so-called sacred. Clearly what we have here is the sublimation of emotional need, manifest in beliefs that require no rational support, and which are founded upon a disturbingly common predilection for believing things in an absence of evidence. But it may be asked by the defenders of the faiths, so what? People are entitled to believe what they will, and evidential criteria is a matter of personal choice. It has never, of course, been laid down in stone that people are entitled to anything particularly. Beliefs are not actually a right or an entitlement because they cannot, since they ultimately exist in the mind, be taken away. Physical manipulation of the brain accepted. What concerns us here is whether such beliefs are rational, and clearly they are not, and are not even given as such. However, what is not rational is, by definition, irrational, and we must ask if irrationality is in any sense socially benign, and the answer again is surely no. We defend our own irrationality most often by simply denying it, but we defend the irrationality of others with a deliberately overstated ignorance of the impact of their psychology upon society, and therefore on us. We tend to see human irrationality as socially benign only when we can perceive no immediate connectedness to our personal welfare. However, a simple illustration is usually sufficient to demonstrate where our ultimate sympathies would lie. Let's suppose you've been accused of murder, and as it happens, the particularly gruesome murder of a child, the kind of crime that causes people to become highly emotive and vengeful, though admittedly it takes very little for this to happen. As it happens, you are innocent, but there is a considerable amount of circumstantial evidence attached to the case. Not only your welfare, but the welfare of your family hinges on the outcome of the trial. You're standing in the dock. You look over to the members of the jury. So I put it to you, do you wish to see there 12 rationalists, or 12 souls who have a natural predilection for believing things in an absence of evidence? That is, believing things in order to sublimate emotional needs. I put it to you very seriously. Our tacit and at times overt acceptance of this kind of belief psychology comes almost exclusively as a result of our inadequate appreciation for the connectedness of things in society, and for the fact that even a little irrationality in one individual adds up to a great deal of irrationality when multiplied through the entire community, and as truth would have it, also as a result of our guilt at being an obvious contributor, or is that conspirator.